this meeting to order of the Kentucky Community College Tech System for the interim committee to select a interim president. The press was notified on February the 21st. Ms. Duncan, if you'll call the roll, please.
Yes. Dr. Young, advisory member.
Present.
Chair Stevens.
Here.
Vice Chair Martin.
Here.
Secretary Fletcher.
Here.
Regent Finan.
Here.
Regent Herding.
Here.
Regent Whitten.
Here.
All members are present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Since this is our first meeting, there are no minutes to review. I want to take a few moments to make some statements and comments. With Dr. Sarah Potter's departure, I, as the chairman, was left to determine the procedure to fill the leadership void. I saw the immediate need for an acting president, someone who could steer the ship and become the face of KCTCS during this legislative session. Also to lead us through the Huron study and the meetings involved with external stakeholders. As you know, we appointed Dr. Larry Ferguson as acting president of KCTCS. Dr. Ferguson has agreed to serve 30 to 60 days, and if necessary, a few days longer, so till we select an interim president. Now the chore is at hand that this committee will entertain the ideas and review applications for the interim president. This committee has an awesome responsibility, and it is the responsibility for us to pick and the best candidates available. As board chairman, I thought it was not appropriate for me to make the decision to appoint an interim president. Rather, I wanted full committee to help me in this selection. So as we go forth today, we are here to prepare to talk about the professional policies and steps necessary to fill this void. I want to make it clear with the committee that I would prefer that we put forward 2 to 3 names to the full Board of Regents for their consideration as an interim president. The committee will take the decision seriously and after completing all of the necessary paperwork, guidance, and so make those recommendations to the board. I'm going to turn the meeting over now to Ms. Duncan to proceed with the timeline and the information. And any time during this meeting, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Ms. Duncan.
Thank you, Chair Stevens. I do want to kind of begin with what we have done thus far, and that is a profile has been developed with feedback from regents to determine what attributes, what qualities, and what responsibilities an interim should have. And that profile will be used to determine and to determine what is the best candidate possible, and also to it will be provided to our firm that will actually help to identify those candidates. So for the benefit, and excuse me, for the benefit of those who have not seen the profile right now, let's take a look at it. So these are attributes, requirements, and expectations, and the presidential evaluation team and the executive officers have provided feedback for this committee.
Excuse me, Pam, we had Regent Whitten had a comment or a question.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
No, you're okay, General Counsel. I was going to let you kind of get through that because I thought maybe perhaps you would give us some context on the creation of the document. That's one of the questions that I had. perhaps the date or the timeline that this has just been recently created. Is that correct? We're not working from an old one.
We are not working from an old one. The evaluation tool that was being developed for Dr. Zarapata's evaluation has been used to determine the attributes. In addition, the evaluation team and executive officers put into just kind of sent me expectations and requirements that they felt were needed. Additionally, we added in discussion of what the policy requires, what the statutes require, what the main missions are throughout our colleges, and tried to develop something that would hit on all of those attributes, requirements, and expectations. So this is brand new. It was developed over the last month.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I will say also, Regent Whitten, that this will be used to develop the final job description for posting of a permanent president. Regent Herding?
I was just gonna say, this is more like possibly a living document as well. If this committee decides they don't like something in it or wants to change something or add something, that is a possibility, correct?
Right, and that's what we're doing right now, is we are discussing it, and if there is something that needs to be revised, added, removed, then we can do so. So this is not final right now. We want to get it where the committee wants it to be. And that should include if you have received any feedback from the people that you represent. So if staff have told you, Regent Herding, we want to see X, Y, or Z, then you should put that forward. The same, Regent Whitten. And that is why we have Dr. Young here, because we realized there was a hole where the presidents were concerned. And so we wanted her to be on this committee to provide their feedback. It's my understanding that she has reached out to her fellow presidents, just as you all reach out to your constituencies. So this is a living, breathing document, and up until the time that we send it to the registry or however we use this document, it could change, but we need to have a robust and open discussion about it now. I see somebody has their hand up. Hannah.
Yes, it's me. Thanks, Pam. I just wanted to add, you've already briefly touched on it, but this document was created as a starting point. It's easier for a committee to start with something than create something entirely new. So please don't think that this was created, without input or anything like that. As Pam mentioned, the executive team and the evaluation committee had already looked at it and worked on it and wordsmithed a little bit, but of course this committee is welcome to provide input, but we didn't want to have this meeting and have nothing to put in front of you to work from.
So this document right now, let us kind of put this on hold and then we'll go over it. I do want to tell you that in the documents that we included for you, there were two statutory provisions, one being the kind of overarching structure of higher ed in Kentucky, and then the other being, and that's the legislative findings, and basically it goes into what KCTCS is responsible for, and basically that is those three prongs that we keep hammering on. We are supposed to provide education for receiving associate degrees. We're supposed to provide, and with that being transfer degrees, workforce. We are supposed to fill the need for workforce in the state of Kentucky. And we're supposed to provide continuing and continual education as people go through their lives. So retraining for those people who have somehow been removed from the workforce, either through a layoff or a close down of their particular workplace, or because they simply have a desire to change course in life. Adult basic skills, etc. So we are here and we have tried to incorporate all of these statutory requirements that KCTCS, the legislature envisioned KCTCS providing. So when you're starting to think about an interim and then transitioning to think later on about the permanent president, you should keep all of this in front of you. We are not an either or institution. The system is about many things to many people, and the interim and the permanent president will both need to be many things to many people. So those are the documents that I have provided to you. Additionally, today, in talking with the registry, we did get some documentation about how they will work. And their process is down here, their brochure and their value proposition. So the registry is essentially, and Hannah may laugh at me for saying this, but I told her I liken it to, you know, I grew up in the Baptist and then the Methodist tradition. And so for those of you who are church going, it's kind of like a supply minister. Basically, when you, if your minister leaves your congregation, and you need a new one, you call up the conference and say, hey, can you give us some names of people? And then your congregation looks at them and decides. So think of yourselves as the congregation and the registry as the conference, or whatever your faith tradition is. You may not have any at all and just want to look at it as the registry, but that is kind of what I liken it to, just to give a quick analogy. They will essentially, they have a whole pool of candidates who are highly vetted, who are not permitted to apply for the final and permanent position. They come from all over the country. And many of our presidents have heard of them and feel that they are truly, as they say, the gold standard for placement. So they specifically look at or specialize in higher ed. And they will place presidents, they will place chancellors, they will place academic officers of all levels, vice presidents of all levels. They are vetted and hired in advance, and they would be a contracted consultant with us essentially, but we would ultimately provide for the registry what we feel the appropriate salary would be, and then there would be we have a contract with the registry, and that contract would be with the registry, not with the interim. So are there questions about so far the timeline and the process? So that's what we will do, is develop the profile. If you like the profile, you've got it where you want it to be, then I will reach out on behalf of this committee to the registry, and they can provide us a set number of candidates, whatever you determine would be appropriate. And then at that point, I asked them several questions. Would you be able to select 2 to 3 candidates that you could take forward to the full Board of Regents? They said yes, and you will be able to interview them. I also asked whether there could be people from the community, if that is something that someone knew of someone who they felt would be an appropriate candidate and they recommended them, they could also be interviewed by the board. But I will stress that this is a full board decision. It is not just this committee. Ultimately, you are tasked with narrowing it down to 2 to 3 candidates to take to the full board. So are there questions before we start going over the profile? All right, let's dig in and see what we've got here.
Well, wait a minute. I have a question.
Okay.
Is it possible to have the link? So I'm getting feedback. Let me find out. Is there possible to get the link so that people, if they want to, how they go to that link?
Okay, I didn't get all of what you said, but I'm going to try and fill in the blanks because you were cutting out.
Yeah, I couldn't hear him either.
I think what you were asking, Chair Stevens, is it possible to have a link to permit people to have input into the profile? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yes, we can arrange that. Now, at some point, you will need to determine as a committee when you want that cutoff date. So if we put out a link, we will need to have an end date so that we stay on track to meet that 30 to 60 days of identifying an interim and getting that interim in place.
Correct. Let's go through the job description and let everybody comment. Then we'll try to come a consensus of a date when that we want the application deadline, if we can. So go ahead, continue, Pam.
Okay, if we can see the profile again. So what the committee had originally talked about was having the interim serve for 12 to 18 months. And so a year and a half approximately. And the registry said that they could do long-term interims. They could also do multi-year contracts if that ultimately turns out to be what you want. Now, as I said, the committee has had feedback, and we've talked about the statutory and policy requirements that are in the statute and the policy to say that we need someone who's going to identify and address immediate obstacles to the success of the system, to provide confidence to the institution's faculty and staff, and most importantly, our students, to build strong relationships with the communities that we serve, and also to create a cohesive statewide vision. I think everyone has expressed a desire and a need to have an interim and then ultimately a permanent president who will have a unified vision that will also consider our independent colleges. Regent Whitten.
Yes, Pam, I just wanted to kind of make sure that I'm clear on this point. So when we're talking about the names and the people who are going to be available, and those names being provided to us, we're talking about a minimum of 1 to 1.5 years, correct? Is there any way that period, that maybe our search doesn't take that long and that period's actually shortened, or are we locked into that 1.5? I just want to make sure moving forward that I'm on the right page.
And that's a good question. You are not locked into it. There is a 30-day cancellation clause. So at any time, if our search proceeds more quickly than we thought it would, then you all could direct us to go ahead and cancel the interim contract. So at that point, we would simply give 30 days notification, and the interim would know that 30 days would be up, and the new president would be in. So what I would say is that we would be able to gauge that as we're going along, because as I discussed previously, we are finalizing administratively the RFPs, the award of an RFP for search committees. And so they would begin at some point, based on the board's direction, to start that search process. But I do believe the board has indicated very clearly they want to go slowly and methodically in determining who will be the next permanent president of KCTCS, and to do a broad and wide-ranging national search for the next candidate. But yes, you would be able to cancel with a 30-day notification.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if we could scroll down just a little bit. So right here, remember that we have several actual attributes that will be part of the evaluation of the interim, as well as part of the evaluation of the permanent president. So in the new evaluation tool, you will see that there is adaptability as one attribute. And basically they're saying that the person that will be the best interim and the best permanent president will respond to different environments, people, and tasks, and really just be able to deal with the uncertainty and the ambiguity that comes with leading a system of this complexity. And then this evaluation tool will give work behavior. So this person will be composed and effective. They will adapt to market challenges, and they will be clear in what their priorities are, and also in balancing different objectives. You can't just focus on one thing when you're looking at 16 different environments plus the system office. You've got to have all of these different abilities and adaptabilities. Integrity and honesty, good judgment, presence, the ability to walk into a room and establish yourself, to kind of leverage your presence and to be able to quickly create relationships that will be positive and beneficial to the system. So these are the attributes. There are a few more down here if you can scroll down. So also preparation. The president needs to be prepared, even if it appears to be a minor issue with one of the colleges. That might take 15 minutes to deal with. Over preparation probably is what you're looking for, is someone who's going to be prepared to meet the short-term and the long-term needs of the system. Strategic. This goes into the visionary part of it. How you have indicated that you want someone who knows how to move that vision forward in very strategic ways, working with the academic side, with the business side, with employers, with employees, etc., with the legislature, and team building. Someone who has a positive working relationship and is able to create in others the willingness and the desire to perform as well. And true professionalism. This is one of those things, like the Supreme Court said, I don't know what it is when they were talking about pornography. I know it when I see it. And so true professionalism, sometimes you can't really define it. It has some intangibles to it. But when you see it, you can define it. And I think when you do those interviews, you'll be able to really quantify what it is that you're looking for. Okay. So let's open it up the floor for discussion on those attributes. And remember that I'm sorry, can we go back to the profile, because I do want to go back to those bulleted points. If you'll go up, and I'll tell you, right here. So the interim will be experienced in all aspects of complex community college system, the demands and balances of executive leadership. And executive leadership is perceived as the presidential level. So they may not have been a president of a system, but a president of a college or multiple colleges. So they have that benefit of the overarching view of what that will demand. Legislative issues. We've got a lot of those coming at us right now. And so they've got to be able to know which ones will affect us both on the federal and state level. Academic governance is always an issue, workforce education, and the generation of skilled workers. How are we going to be the workforce engine of Kentucky, but also make sure that our AA degrees, our associate degrees are where we want them to be. Continuing education, again, that goes back to all those prongs. Partnerships with nonprofits, for-profit, and governmental agencies. There are a lot of leveraging of private, public partnerships right now. Also, we have a lot of agencies that KCTCS deals with, and then all areas of a well-functioning higher education institution. So they need to know something about employment matters, fiscal responsibility, facility management. While it is a hallmark of good leadership to be able to surround yourself with people who know what they're doing, it is also a hallmark of good leadership to be able to ask questions of those people to ensure that they are doing what they are supposed to be doing. And then there's your initiatives and also requirements. So you are asking for the system to continue its initiatives and completion of the Huron Project, other types of strategic plan initiatives. I mean, we have a whole strategic plan that needs tending to. And so we need to be looking for someone who can do that. So I have said a lot, and now I'm going to open it up to you all to take over and make comments as you will.
Brianna, sorry, I feel like I'm talking a great deal today. I really appreciate the care that went into the document. I feel that the evaluation team and the executive officers who crafted this as a place to start really took the time and listened to things or concerns that the board had. What was the overall sentiment with the document? I mean, I'm assuming everybody was on board. Was there anything that perhaps didn't get in that they thought maybe should be expanded on? Those are just some thoughts to start with. Was there anything, Dr. Young, perhaps you could speak to that, that didn't quite make it to this document that was also considered important?
Thank you. I did not hear from any of my colleagues with, I guess, major concerns. However, the thing that we want to ensure is that the interim does have experience, preferably community college experience, because we are different from a four-year institution. And I think sometimes people struggle a little bit with that difference. We don't quite fit neatly into the boxes that people try to put us in. So that's critically important. I think also from a presidential perspective, we are interested in someone who is willing to develop relationships with us as well, and utilize the many, many years of experience that they will have at their disposal, and help us to for that individual to be a liaison, if you will, for us to you as board members, and as well as share the board's concerns or any information that the board would like to share. I would also like to say that regarding some of what I see here, I think it's perhaps important for the interim president and eventually the permanent president to have some of these characteristics. But some of them also, we feel as presidents that it's our responsibility, especially when it comes to the connections to the community. It is important for communities to know who the KCTCS president is, but for the most part, particularly perhaps in the smaller communities, I may not be able to speak for the larger ones, we are their connection. And so as long as they know who we are and, are hearing from us, that is their biggest concern. So some of these bullets in terms of, them being able to build strong relationships with community populations, that's great. Providing confidence to the institution's faculty, staff, and students, that's critically important as well. And I think that will come as long as relationships are built with those constituents. So overall, I think we are good here, but we just want to make sure that that presidential voice is included. Thank you.
And if I
Thank
could just
you for
add
your-
a couple comments just on the attribute side, in terms of how we approach that. And I think Pam said this earlier, but I just want to reinforce it. This was a living document, something that we wanted to see. At the time we were doing it, we didn't necessarily have interim in mind. We had permanent in mind. But I do agree that those attributes are the same for an interim in a lot of ways. And we spent quite a bit of time wordsmithing, really looking at the words, because words do matter. And so I just wanted to reinforce that there was a lot of thought put into that particular piece. That was developed with an outside consultant, as well as the evaluation committee.
Regent Herding.
Yeah, I just say I really, really like the document and the way it's laid out. It made it a lot easier coming into this meeting, knowing what I'm looking at. And bear with me as I process this thought, I apologize. What I think is missing, it doesn't say, maybe it should be there, a totally different document, but it doesn't say what our role as Board of Regents is to this person or to the next president. I know when I first started, we talked about the Board of Regents being a voice of one through the board chair. As I've been working in the board for the past 3 years, I don't know if we always comply with that when it comes to dealing with our only one employee. And honestly, if you paid me $1 million and showed me this and said, do you want to come work and report to 14 different bosses? I would say, no, thank you. I'd say, no, thank you. I'm doing fine. I'll do the IT thing. I'm doing great. So I wonder if we could do our own document, our own paragraph or something, come together a conclusion as a board of the whole, what our role is going to be for this person coming in. I hope I said that well enough.
Yes, and so I think it might not necessarily be in this document, but it is something that we've been stressing about, trying to create a communication procedure. How does the board or how do various regents communicate with the president or ask for information? Chair Stevens had previously said all of the requests need to flow through board liaison Rivera, and that she should be the one then to collect the data and send it out. We haven't always, because sometimes things are flying fast and furiously, haven't always lived up to that. But I think that's a good point, is What are the responsibilities and obligations of a board to its president, not just a president to its board? So I think we could develop that. It could even be in the form of a resolution. It could be in the form of another document that says, the Board of Regents, hereby indicate, and it could be provided along with the profile to the regents, or you could simply talk to the interim about it and develop that sufficiently to provide to the interim, and then so there are lots of ways to do it, I guess is what I'm saying, and I think the board should think about that. Dr. Young.
I just would like to thank Regent Heerdink for that comment and that suggestion, because without an understanding, of course, I feel like a candidate, an applicant should ask questions that would lead to an understanding of who they would report to or how this all works. But I think it's critically important for that to be outlined, because otherwise that individual is not being set up for success. It's not going to work from the get-go. So I think it's very, very important for that communication piece to be outlined and followed.
And that is noted, and I agree completely. And I think also that part of the evaluation tool could include relationships with the board, but also it should be the board assessment. The board is supposed to assess themselves each year as well. And so that will be part of your assessment to look, at the, I feel like I'm being very religious today, look at the beam in your eye and determine, whether you are appropriately dealing with the president and vice versa. Regent Martin.
Yes. Hey, Joe, I have a question for you. Do you feel like that we have our guidelines in place from a board's perspective? It's just we don't follow them. Is that what you're kind of coming to the conclusion of? And that we should reiterate that chain of command?
Kind of. I think there is some sort of framework in place in board policy, and if you go to the ACCT and that book we got, that there is a framework for it, and maybe we don't reiterate it enough as we get new board members and we go through that process of turnover. Maybe we should do something more like that, or I like the idea of an affirmation or some sort of communication method, just to, specifically for this moment, to let the next person know what to expect from us and to let us know what our job is and our role is. That was kind of my thought, if that makes sense.
Okay. Because we do have in place the way our board chair, where the president or the interim will report to the board chair. And I feel like maybe you're saying that at times that we go around that, and us as regents go directly to the president and the staff and ask for things that should go through the chair. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's the way I envisioned it. That's the way I was kind of, when I came into being a regent, that's what I thought it was going to be. And I just don't think we've hit that mark as well as I expected.
Okay.
And I do think that there is lots of opportunity to be had in building relationships and defining parameters and boundaries and how the board works with the president, but again, how the president works with the board as well. So I think that's good conversation, and certainly my mind already, the wheels are turning as to how we might be able to better encapsulate that. I'm not sure it's in this document, but I've got some ideas and I'll put those forward to the board. Okay. Vice Chair Martin, are you struggling with your hand or do you have another question?
No, I'm just struggling with, I guess, forgot my hand.
Okay. All right. So overall, how is the committee feeling about the profile? Are we prepared to move forward based on, we could put a link up and ask for input? Now, you don't want to be flooded with tons and tons of comments. At some point, you have to make a decision as a committee to take this profile forward, and then because we want to get cracking, so to speak, on finding an interim. And the registry, I heard from them this morning, they are more than happy to work with us and excited to do so.
So Pam, just to clarify, when you say open it up for comment, you mean open it up to community, faculty, and staff, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we could set a time frame for that. We could be kind of explicit because we're under quite a time frame ourselves.
Right, because we're talking about having the acting for 30 to 60 days. So if we want an interim, we need to start thinking about really getting involved and working. It would be ideal to be able to, to get some potential candidates around mid-March near the board meeting or directly after the board meeting. So you need to think about that time frame. 30 to 60 days is not long, and part of that time frame has already passed.
And I want to reiterate the point that this is not the job description. These are attributes that the registry is going to use to kind of develop a job description. I don't want us to get too committed or hung up on anything in this document, because ultimately it may be in front of candidates, but if you're a candidate, you're going to be looking at that job description to see the minute details. So I am a little bit concerned about putting it out there to wordsmith. We in higher education love to wordsmith, and I don't want us to get hung up changing a sentence or two, but delaying the process, a week or 2 weeks out.
And
I would really prefer to push forward with this, get this with the registry, and then, do the inclusiveness with the job description. I just think timing is incredibly important, and each day that we wait, it's concerning. So my recommendation would be to move forward with what we have here.
Karen, sorry, I'm kind of jumping in here. I would like to go ahead and make that recommendation that we open it up and prior to giving it to the search, but set a date for community, faculty, and staff feedback. Perhaps, just looking at a calendar, here we are on the 21st, but it seems reasonable to me that perhaps by the first full week in March being over, that we could close that comment window, so we could then have extra time. I'm thinking, Sunday, March 5th looks great to me, but that's just something I wanted to throw out there. I feel that step needs to go, of course, first before we release the document.
Okay, so let me clarify. Are you saying that attribute document would be open for comment, or are we going to send the attribute document to the registry and permit them to develop a job description that could come back for comment?
Yeah, I think that we open this attribute document up to our stakeholders first, prior to sending that. I get the relevance, and I'm all with you, Karen. I think we need to push forward as quickly as possible, but I do feel that it's very essential and important for the folks who are maybe a little bit uneasy at this time to have transparency in this process and be represented at least by us. By Joe, myself, especially the employees of KCTCS, and, as we've mentioned, the other community stakeholders.
Regent Fletcher?
So can any of you who want to open this up to comment give me an example of what kind of comment you might expect to get back from faculty and staff that's not in these attributes? I guess I'm just having it's the end of the day, and forgive me, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time. What do we want that outcome to be? What are we expecting them to come back with as far as an attribute for a system interim that isn't already in this document?
Yeah, Regent Fletcher, I'm not sure that you're going to get specific attributes that maybe are not already there. I feel that it's the transparency of the process. It's allowing those people to have a voice beyond just Joe and myself, at least for the elected folks. You know, perhaps there were presidents who maybe didn't get to fully vet the document, or maybe just have a comment, even if it was just for us to get a pat on the back to say, hey, we like what you guys are doing. We appreciate the transparency. I just feel that it's very necessary, just considering past experiences where we have not always held that as a standard. I think that the transparency piece, especially for our employees, is very essential.
Vice Chair Martin?
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't go ahead and maybe give this to them to start working on, with the understanding that when we get the feedback, if there is any major modifications, that we will make it. I think time is of the essence. If we wait 2 more weeks before we send it on, then how much longer will it be before we get a job description?
Right.
And we've got President Ferguson for what, 60 to 90 days, and we can extend that. But I mean, we're already going to have 30 days under our belt by the time we get a job description, potentially.
Anna?
I believe that after this first meeting, we will send out an update. It would probably come from Chair Stevens to all faculty and staff as an update in the process of where we are. We could attach this attributes document and say if there are comments or additions that anyone would like to include, that they are welcome to email me and I can tackle those. And, you know, of course, if there is something significant that the committee would like to see or we get feedback, I'll share it with the committee and then share it with the registry as needed. And rather, instead of just putting it out there for wordsmithing, say if someone does have or feels the need to reply and send feedback, they can do that to me, and I can keep track of those. Just a suggestion.
Regent Fletcher?
I would just like to ask the staff and the faculty regents, since the announcement was made that we were going to have an acting president and then an interim search would be quickly underway, have either of you received any feedback from anyone who had comments about the process or comments about the search? Because as Dr. Young has pointed out, she did not hear back from any of her colleagues specifically about this particular document that's now been published for the last week. Have either of you received any comments from anyone about it? And can you give us some feedback on that? So maybe that'll help direct this decision a little better.
Sure. Yeah. I won't speak for Joe, but I've had quite a mixed bag from faculty and staff, even community members who I think perhaps might be confused about the process or the naming of, right? So it's, you know, acting interim acting president. I think the process just needs to be more defined for them. I mean, I feel that we've done that. I don't know how we can clarify that even further. That's a big point of confusion, I would say. And especially for maybe newer employees who just don't even know the process, right? It seems like such a large thing to folks who aren't in this every day like we are. That's basically been the primary question that I have received, if we're kind of going off of a theme. But Joe, I will let you speak for yourself.
I guess it's a little different on maybe the west side of the state. I didn't get a whole lot of feedback other than the whole confusion of what happened, basically. Not more so, you know, how are we looking for an interim or who the acting president is at the moment. It was more what just happened. That's kind of feedback I've been getting.
Dr. Young?
Yes, from my perspective and from what I'm hearing, not necessarily just from the president, but on campus. I think there is some concern about what feels to be a rush in the process. There is confusion about acting and interim. I would just go back and just say that Regent Witten hit the nail on the head from what I'm hearing, that I understand there is a need to move quickly because dates or time, a time frame has been set. But from some of our employees' perspectives, we're always rushing to get something done. And it just feels like this is another one of those things where we're rushing to get it done. And sometimes they feel like they don't have the input. To be honest with you, Regent Fletcher, we probably won't get very many different comments from what's already in here. But I do think that it would go a long way in terms of transparency and building trust among our employees.
Thank you for those comments.
Regent Finer?
I would, I'd like to suggest maybe FAQ be posted somewhere to clear up some of the confusion, in terms of acting versus interim. I think that's a important communication, because I can understand how different sectors would be confused on top of what just happened. But I do think there's just some basic information that could be posted. And I also like Barry's idea of working concurrently, get the registry going with what we have. There was no pushback on this call today with the attributes that we had discussed, and set a timeline for feedback from faculty and staff and feed that into the registry. They're professionals. If there's something new and different, they can build that in, and we can get our job description in a timely manner.
Regent Martin?
Yeah, Dr. Young, by all means, and Brianna and Joe, we definitely want to be, I wrote down some of our points of emphasis, and the system should be more transparent and include more input from those involved. And by all means, we want that from you guys and from everyone else. But also keep under, under our guidelines and our dates that we're trying to do this. Not that we're rushing it, but you have to have guardrails. And we're just trying to stay within those guardrails while keeping it as transparent of a process as possible. And I don't think anybody here is trying to not do that. I think we're just trying to do that under some time constraints. I think either way we go, if we move too slow, we're going to get critiqued. If we work too fast, we're going to get critiqued. There is not going to be a happy medium. But by all means, I feel like this process is very transparent, and we've been very free flowing with it. Even though, we had to act quickly as far as the acting, that was only pressed upon us. The other parts are, we're setting our own timelines. So.
Yeah, and Barry, I agree. And I just threw the 5th out there because I thought, I was thinking of our staff, our lovely staff here, who are going to have to throw this thing out here and do the FAQ that Karen suggested. And then perhaps, like Hannah suggested, attaching this attribute form to the email. So I'm looking at maybe by the earliest, right, tomorrow or Thursday, and at least 7 days of comment is kind of where I was going. So I mean, the 5th is not something that I'm stuck on. I just wanted to make sure that everybody, here we are, Tuesday of a holiday week where everybody's trying to play catch up anyway. So I thought it might just be beneficial to at least give a 7-day commenting period on this document. And just to let, it's more of a perception, right? To let our folks know that we are listening to them, that we do care about the stakeholder voice, that they are relevant and they are important to us as a board, whether we are elected or appointed, that they know that they do have a place in our ear for comment.
I would
Right.
just like to say
Oh.
to that, I don't want to cut in, and I'm sorry if I just jumped in on somebody, but I think that in every board meeting, in every televised, streamed meeting, we have made it extremely clear. Please let us know if there's a problem. Please let us know. Please speak up at these town halls. Please send an email to the anonymous. This board, I have never worked on a board before where more requests have been made for every stakeholder involved to please contact someone on the board, whether it's your elected representative, it's an appointed member in your community, it's an appointed member in somebody else's community, the board chair, the staff. I think we have begged all through, at least through the 4 years that I've been on this board, we have begged repeatedly for that input, for that feedback. My middle name is transparency, and I think I've said that a few times. We want that. But at the end of the day, this is our statutory obligation. This is our duty. We have one employee. This is our job to do. And while we have begged for that feedback, we have asked for that feedback, and I want that transparency. I want everyone to know we are here for every stakeholder. Everything that we do as a board is for their benefit. That's the way I look at this job anyway. I do not know that throwing it out there for the sake of saying, see, we were transparent. We've been transparent the whole time. We've pushed meetings into open forums. We've pushed data into the sunlight. We've done that all along the way. I don't know that it's like meeting for the sake of a meeting. What is this going to accomplish? We've had no feedback in the time that the document's been published, and it has been published. It was in the book. It's been out there for over what? You're shaking your head no.
It was not published to faculty and staff. This document, I've seen it. Joe's seen it. Nobody else has seen it. And please correct me if I'm wrong. This attribute document did not go out to all employees at KCTCS.
No, it did not.
Was it not part of the public notice of the meeting?
No, they don't receive those documents. That was something that I've actually been working on. They don't see the board book before we go to board in draft form or any other form. They don't see these documents. They used to, when, 4 or 5 years ago, the documents for the board book were published on the site. I know, I would go through them, I would look for them, but no, faculty and staff have not seen this document. That's why I'm asking for transparency.
So
Let's do it. Let's put it out there. Let's give it a time frame, but go ahead and push it to the registry and let them start working on getting us a job description. So maybe we'll have the job description by the time we get the any input, and we can look at it and modify it based on that.
right.
Yeah, I'm absolutely okay with that. I think that's a grand idea, actually, Barry, to go ahead and have it working. We've said it multiple times in this meeting. It's a working document.
Right.
It's organic. It's going to live and it's going to grow. But that shouldn't stop us from going ahead and in this group, I think personally, to develop that job description.
And we will look at any input. We're not just saying, we're doing it, the end result's it, and whatever is said, we won't consider it. We will consider that, but it has to have some kind of a bearing that would change that document, not just for the sake of changing it because we want to seem like we were transparent.
I appreciate those comments, and I'm glad that I asked that question or said what I said, because I don't think I was aware that the board book was not part of the meeting notice, for one. So that's good. But for two, now that I've known that was not, but that you and Joe have seen it, have you dispersed it to anyone for feedback?
No, it's always been my understanding, and I actually, the Honorable Pam Duncan will tell you that this is something, a pet project of mine since I've joined the board. I have wanted transparency in all of these documents. We've run up against some obstacles as far as what can be released and what cannot be released. Pam, you're welcome to explain that further. But no, unless I explicitly asked to share a document, I have not ever shared a document.
Right. And that has to do with open records. If something is not finalized yet, for instance, it's your duty here to finalize a document such as this, then typically it is a preliminary document. Now, Regent Whitten has asked me several times about documents, and I've said no problem. But sometimes, for instance, with budgets, you wouldn't want to put it out there until it's finalized, until the board has a chance to look at it, because you don't know what's going to change in that. A document like this is, as you said, a living and breathing document, so there wouldn't be a problem. For instance, and I will say Dr. Young asked me if she could distribute it, and I said no problem. So I don't have a problem with this document being distributed. There might be an analysis as to, yes, and that is correct. There is a time frame. Dr. Young was just added to this committee, and so she may not have had a chance to get feedback from people who are very busy right now. So I don't have a problem. I do believe that you all have hit on a really good idea of having a contemporaneous activity here where it's given to the registry, and they start working on developing the job description while you all are getting input. And I think Hannah has already sent a list to staff members saying, hey, this is what we need, an FAQ. Maybe we need a web page where we're posting things just like we do for the Huron project. So there are lots of things that we can do to make it a transparent process, and we will get hopping on those things.
I would like to the committee to think about, I got 2 dates, March the 15th, which is a Wednesday, and March the 17th, which is a Friday, to close the register. Meaning is that by the close of business those days, we should have to you, Hannah, who is the facilitator of this, the information of who the candidates are that they want us to start reviewing. But I think that's important that we tell them the date that we want the applicant. I mean, they can send us applications as they receive them, but we would like to have a ending date for all applications to be given to us. And I just threw out the dates of March the 15th and March the 17th. That would give this committee another week or so to review the applicants. And it is my intention that when we get down to the final 2 or 3 applicants, we'll have to have a special call meeting or a recommendation and let the board make that decision.
And remember that some of this is a truncated process for them because all of the heavy lifting has been done in advance by them. You cannot get into the registry unless you have gone through all of the vetting processes necessary, just like you would for employment, but they've done it on the front end. So once you identify those candidates that you want to take to the board, you should not anticipate any obstacles, like some strange oddity coming up when they're Googled or something like that. All of that, and only the most stellar professionals are part of the registry. They go through quite the process to vet them. So I'm hearing, go ahead, Hannah.
2 points I want to make real quick. One, about the publishing of documents, which I know Regent Whitten has brought to my attention before. Some of that is also around ADA concerns about posting it on our public website. I know if you've been on the board for a long time, we did previously post everything. But that is no longer considered a best practice under ADA concerns. And as Pam or General Counsel Duncan talked about, changes to the document. So We post everything in onboard, but only regents have access to onboard and or others as needed, such as staff members. And we post the agenda and summaries and those documents to the public site for others. Of course, if anyone ever asks for anything, it is all public information and we could send to them, but we just cannot post everything that the board sees, which you guys know can be several hundred pages sometimes, publicly. As General Counsel Duncan mentioned, we will have a web page set up for the interim once we get some documents to post there. With a timeline, we'll put a FAQ. If you were here when we did the presidential search, we had that on our public website and shared it out to all of our stakeholders with the documents that were available there.
So do we need a motion or what's our next step here?
So you do need a motion to approve this as the preliminary attributes to go to the registry. And
Pam, yes,
this is going to be a long motion, but also.
in conclusion of that, do we need to put a date? I mentioned to the date is, do we need to put, and doesn't make me any difference, it's up to the rest of them, but that gives us, I'm trying to look at the window for Larry and things, that gives us a couple of weeks in transition for but I would like to have all of the applications, and that's up to the board to decide, either by March the 15th is Wednesday or the 17th. And that does not preclude them, if we get other applicants, if we want to have a special meeting and review some applicants, we can certainly do that. Right, Pam?
Correct. They said that they are non-exclusive, that if the board identifies other applicants, that they can be considered as well.
So don't we need to make into this a time frame for the input back from the staff?
Yes, so
And that has to be before the 15th.
Right, exactly. So that, I think that's your first part of your motion. I think you should do two motions, and that is to adopt these as the preliminary attributes with input from faculty and staff by, I think that was appropriate to have the 7 days feedback. So if we had 7 calendar days, if it's posted tomorrow, when would that be?
March 1st.
Okay, so feedback by March 1st, incorporated and provided to the registry if it revises or changes anything in the document. So I think that would be your motion, essentially, is to adopt and seek input in a contemporaneous method. So Hannah, you may be able to put that together better than I did.
I think I have it.
I wrote it down as you were talking.
My comment would be, we're supposed to meet again on March the 2nd after the planning committee, so we would know what the final document was if we want to do any changes or so. My concern is to get it out to John Q. Public or get it to the register, and to find that drop dead date that we're not going to accept any applications past ever what we decide, March the 15th or March the 17th.
So if we get any input by March the 1st, we talk about it on March the 2nd, then we could get it out to John Q. Public by March 3rd. We probably need to give them 2 weeks, give them to March 17th. Would that be enough time?
So the comment would be closed as of March 1st.
Right.
And we would just go ahead and send the additional comments to, we would group them like the Huron project would be doing and say, oh, this goes to this attribute, these are additional or these are not, and send it forward to the registry, who has already been looking at that. So they could have identified some candidates, and there might be additional candidates based on the additional input.
Okay. For some reason, I thought the input would come to us as this group and then incorporate that if necessary.
Right. I don't think it needs to necessarily come back to you. I do think it slows down. I think we can take it and just, with your blessing, add to. But if we're going to do this contemporaneously, get comment and send to the registry, then they're already looking at the attributes, and then we would send forward and say, hey, these are some additional comments and recommendations that came in. Can you either revise the candidates you're looking at or include additional candidates that the committee can look at to select and send forward?
So
Wendy, I
what
think,
if?
comment?
I just have a motion when you're ready. I'll let everybody else finish
Okay.
speaking.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
So now that's not to say, Vice Chair Martin, that it can't come back to you, but it does slow it down just a little bit more. If you're doing,
Inundate the registry with a bunch of comments that
No.
maybe
No, I wouldn't.
no, I
somebody
mean,
needs to filter those comments. What if we get back 200 or 300? You guys are going to filter it, Hannah and Pam?
I
Okay.
truly don't expect to get back 200 or 300, but if we were to, we will do that. But what I'm looking for are significant changes to the existing document. I'm not going to share with the registry that they need to add a comma or add an adjective in there. But if there's something significant that we get back, we will share that with the committee and then also with
Okay.
the registry.
That's the only thing I just don't want the registry convoluted with stuff that they don't need to have. So, okay, I'm good with that. So
I was writing, but if Wendy's writing, you go for it.
So if we're looking at March the 1st to get that back, are we still on board with 2 weeks by March 15th to have candidates back to us? Is 2 weeks enough?
No, Barry, I understand that we approve this, and they're gonna start looking at it tomorrow.
Okay.
And so really we could have somebody 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but the drop day, bad terminology. The ending of the registrar is the 17th and no other applications. And, it's my hope that if we get applicants prior to that, depending on everyone else's ability to meet, we may, look at some applicants is what I'm saying, is some information. So that's another thing that we'll have to work out with Pam and Hannah. How do we distribute them for everybody to look at this and that? So that's something that I'll work with Hannah on to see how we're going to do that. Pam, are you ready for Wendy's motions?
yes.
I move this committee to adopt the current attributes document, providing it to the registry while concurrently publishing the same for feedback from interested stakeholders, which can be grouped and then forwarded as necessary to the registry with completion of this process by March 1st.
Second.
All right, I will take a roll call. Dr. Young, you are an advisory member, but you may make comments if you would like.
I can totally support that. I think that's great. Thank you.
Chair Stevens.
Aye.
Vice Chair Martin.
Aye.
Secretary Fletcher.
Aye.
Regent Finan.
Yes.
Regent Herding.
Aye.
Regent Whitten.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. The motion carries.
Do I hear a motion? We adjourn.
I thought we
So
had to
moved.
have a second motion, though.
Oh, yeah, second motion, I'm sorry, the 17th, Pam.
Nope, she included it in the first.
I
you
She
think
wrote it.
we
I
incorporated-
did that so efficiently.
Yes,
I
you did.
optimized the motion, just to be clear.
Okay.
Sorry, I just
They
had
were
to be a
both
little
in the
snarky
same.
there.
Do we need another motion for the 17th, Pam?
Yes, well, yes, we did not.
Wendy, you're
That's
up
what I
again.
thought, Wendy.
Go.
I thought we needed a motion to set a time frame.
Yeah, Wendy, go, you're up, the 17th.
Maybe I'm confused, but I thought we said that we were gonna have all that done by the first. You're saying for them to return candidates by the 17th?
No, the applications end the 17th.
For the registry to be open until the 17th, and we accept applicants. And
So
the
you
end of
will-
it will be the 17th.
You will begin final review of applicants on the 17th. That's the motion to begin final review of applicants
Yes,
on
ma'am.
March the 17th.
So
Motion,
moved.
Do you need a motion for that?
I do, I can't make the motion. I need a board.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
All right, and roll call. Dr. Young, any comments? Chair Stevens,
aye.
Vice Chair Martin,
Aye.
Secretary Fletcher,
Aye.
Regent Finan,
Yes.
Regent Herding,
Aye.
Regent Witten.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous, the motion carries.
Now I can make the motion. Do I hear a motion, we adjourn?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Show of hand. God bless everybody. Thank you for attending.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.